Excavation Profits Podcast by Excavation Marketing Pros. Interviews with successful excavation and septic business owners, revealing how they market and grow their business in today's economy. Hear directly from the most successful leaders in your business and discover what they're doing to keep their phone ringing, equipment running, and businesses booming. Now your host, Scott Andreessen.
All righty. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Scott with the Excavation Profits Podcast, and today I have a very special expert interview with John Seaman of JC Property Professionals and Dirt to Dollars Coaching. How are you, John?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking. So I've been seeing you on Facebook. I've been seeing you on YouTube. I thought, This is going to be good. I have got to get this guy on the Excavation Profits Podcast and hear his story. You're doing some really cool stuff out there.
Yeah.
YouTube channel looks amazing, by the way.
I appreciate it. Yeah, my team does a really good job at that.
So can you start off just kind of telling us about your story and how did JC Property Professionals come to be and all that?
Yeah. So, I don't know how far back you want me to go, but essentially, when I was younger in school, I raced dirt bikes and, had expensive hobbies. And, me and my pops would just do some side jobs to earn some extra money to go racing on the weekends. And, that over time became more and more and more. And I thought racing is what I wanted to pursue. So I went off to college and, raced through college and stuff. And then got a great job traveling, installing energy management and illumination control and stuff. And went as far as I really could in that business and, decided I wanted to do my own thing. So, having the background of having some customers that me and my pops had worked for in the past, doing small odd jobs and stuff like that, I thought it'd be easiest just to come on back home to North Carolina and start my business and, doing construction, continue just doing the odd job stuff, decks and roofs and siding and small additions. And so I did. And when I did come home, my pops was working with somebody else doing construction, and talked him into coming and helping me get started. And we worked together for the first couple of years, and I went and got my GC license, and we started doing full builds, and we did custom homes for several years. And when we got to a point where we were doing multiple homes at one time, we were trying to bring in some guys to do the dirt work, and that relationship wasn't really working out. So I brought in some employees and just rented equipment for a little while, and that turned into something a lot bigger. So then we started a whole dirt work division and kind of got burnt out on the emotion with the construction of the custom homes, and decided just to focus on dirt. And so we've been doing that for several years now.
Amazing. And so what does the company look like? Can you share how many crews, revenue wise, kind of speak to that?
Yeah, so it's changed drastically over the last few years. But where we're at today is we basically run two different divisions. One is just dirt. One is just real estate, essentially now, where we have, specs and flips and total site development. And then, the dirt work side, we do, total site preparation, everything from clearing to getting ready for foundation and everything in between, and a lot of demolition as well. We should do about $4 million this year, which we've done a lot less, a lot more, and where we're kind of turning the knobs on some of the other stuff and some of the coaching and stuff like that. 4 million is about where we'll fall this year with about a 20-man crew, which looks like 2 to 3 different crews depending on the day.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So what made you step into business coaching for excavation contractors?
It actually happened quite organically, really, to be honest with you. It wasn't just a light bulb one day where we thought, well, let's just offer coaching as well. Obviously we've got a lot going on, so we weren't looking really to add more things, to that. But, through our marketing efforts, we we've tried a lot of different things, right? So we've tried like before and afters and how to's and all this stuff. And so we just decided one day, hey, look, let's just build a personal brand, and whatever happens with that happens with that. And I think that, people buy from people, and it's good to just show who you are and what you do. And, that can help in so many different ways, more than just your business. And so that's what we were doing, is just kind of, going out and recording what we did every day, just showing the reality of the dirt work world and showing all the ins and outs of it. And we were just inundated with so many questions from folks of, hey, how do you do this? And how do you do that? And what we were kind of trying to capitalize on that by just utilizing those questions to make more videos to, for more reach, more engagement. And it's just become this wild thing where we get all these folks that are looking for advice. And, I've done this now for 11 years, and I've had to learn a lot of very hard, expensive lessons because unfortunately I didn't have someone to go to learn about the dirt stuff. My dad, when we first started doing the construction stuff, he's an amazing craftsman. He's really, really great at what he does as far as building, but didn't ever know anything about the business side of things, right? Because there's a lot of folks who are just amazing at the service that they do, but then owning a business and knowing all the stuff about the business is completely separate. So that's what we've, obviously I recognize that myself, and we're recognizing it more and more and more by these guys, bringing us these questions of it's typically not, hey, how do I do a French drain? It's, hey, how are you billing for this? Or how do we get leads for this? Or what is my overhead? What should it look like? What should my gross profit look like? And so I just decided, hey, we started with just doing like YouTube lives, and welcoming folks to hop on the call and bringing us their questions. And, it's just grew and grew and grew from there. So that's how the coaching stuff has come.
Can you, looking back, talk about some of those challenges that you faced in the early days of your excavation business? Yeah.
So I think I probably started like a lot of folks that, are in a seat, or with a paintbrush in their hand, or a plumber or whatever, we all get really good at what we do, but we don't know anything about our numbers a lot of times in the beginning. We know what we should charge for a job, but we don't really know if we're profitable or not at the end of the day. And the first several years, I just kind of relied on hustle, and which for myself was fine, but because I was young, I didn't have a family that relied on me to be home in the evenings and stuff, and we just worked our tails off and just kept bringing money in. And so anyway, you don't know if you're profitable or not. That's the biggest thing that we were struggling with is we knew what money was coming in and we knew what money was going out, but we didn't know what we got to keep in our pocket. And, at the end of the year, we see a big, crazy number and we're proud of that. But then once we go see our CPA, we're like, I don't know where any of that money's at, and it's just a big question mark. If you're not tracking all your stuff and you don't understand your numbers, you don't really know what your trajectory needs to look like or should look like or is looking at what it is right then,
Mm-hmm. Was there a specific moment where you had to level up as a business owner, where like you were forced to level up as a business owner that you could talk about?
Yeah. And it happens often to me, I've had different periods, every few years, it seems like, where as we kind of reach the next platform of our business, we've been in cash constraints where we'll buy new equipment and then leads won't come in. And then we're trying to figure out, okay, what are we doing? And so, I remember very specifically coming back from an event and coming home, and none of the guys were working, and a bunch of money had been spent while I was gone. And, I come home to a empty bank account and no money coming in because jobs weren't being completed at the time. So, I just had to sit down and be like, dude, this, there's systems and stuff that will make a business work, and we obviously just don't have them in place. So, we had to really, figure out at that point, like, all right, it's time to stop working in the business and work on the business and get this thing figured out before we continue to, because what happened is while I was gone, where before I was relying on my hustle to go out and bring in income and watch what was going out of the account. I wasn't there to do that, so I had to come home and put all that stuff in place,
Sure. What kind of mistakes do you see most excavation contractors make when they're trying to grow?
Growing too quickly. That kind of sounds crazy, I think, for a lot of folks who haven't experienced it, but I very, very regularly see what looks like businesses that are just blowing up overnight and then fizzling out just as quick as they blew up. And it's explosive and uncontrollable growth, and it's attractive and appealing and ego driven to do that. But I think a lot of folks don't understand what's on the other side of that uncontrollable growth. So most people would probably assume, folks starting out and not having enough leads and going back out of business. But I think it's quite the opposite. If you don't have the systems and processes and ways of doing your business in place before you just grow crazy like that, then, they say, large ships sink from a lot of small leaks, not one big, huge one. And I think that's what happens with uncontrollable growth.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of leads, do you have like a go-to strategy for getting consistent, high-quality excavation leads today?
New or cold leads, does it matter?
Both. With things you're doing to get the people to raise their hand interested in services. So
two different things that we heavily rely on is, if my phone stops ringing, I'm just going to pick the phone up and call past customers. We do a lot of work. We're very diversified in how we do business. We work for the state, municipality, the city, the county. We work for a bunch of general contractors. We work for tons of homeowners. We do residential, we do commercial, and I've designed the business that way so that we don't go through these lulls that a lot of businesses will go through if like you only do commercial or you only do residential. There are times that you're going to be working and you're not going to be working, or you're going to have so much work you don't know how to handle it. And we've kind of just diversified our lead flow so that we got leads coming in so many different directions that things don't normally slow down for us. But if they do, I can pick the phone up and call, a fellow here at the city and say, hey, what's in your budget this quarter? What are you guys looking at doing? And do you need anything bid? Or I can call one of our favorite general contractors and say, hey, do you got a new build coming up? Or do you need backfill on one of your jobs? Or call some of our residential customers who maybe we regularly do driveway work for, or drainage, or some farmers that we do ponds for, So number one is just reaching out to some of the folks that we already do business with.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that we really, really like, believe it or not, is yard signs. We put tons and tons of yard signs out, and man, we get a lot of leads. That's where most of our cold leads will come from. Even over all the lead generation services that we've ever used, that the yard signs have always done really well for us.
Awesome. Now, have you tested digital marketing, and what's worked for you or what's bombed?
Yeah, we've tried probably everything that you can think of. I've had up to a 6-man marketing team here that's, done everything online, and we've done Facebook ads, Google ads, lead generation services. If it's out there, we've probably tried it. And a lot of that stuff, I think that if you're not really good at that one specific thing, it's very hard to dial in on that one thing. So you can't just throw a cast net out and throw a bunch of money out and hope that, with the digital marketing space, that's going to work. I think that, you need to hire someone who's really good at Facebook ads, or you need to hire someone that's really good at Google ads. I think a lot of us can get in and play with it ourselves, but if you don't know it really well, I don't think that it works really well for you. You really need to find the expert, I think, in that area. Mm-hmm. We haven't ever had to focus on that. So we've done really well with guerrilla marketing and just having the lead flow. But I think the number one thing is a brand brings in the most leads, really, than anything that we've ever had to try,
Mm-hmm. How do you position your company to win bids without being the cheapest?
I think that goes back to the brand. That's been the number one most important thing to me from day one is, we're only as good as who we are and what we do and what we say and follow through with. And so, we've tried to build the business off of doing great quality work and getting a review for that. And with that coupled with the branding, just showing who we are and how we present ourselves and how the trucks look and how the equipment looks and how the job sites are left every single day. We rely very heavily on that, most folks who are calling our phone know us from the community and know the kind of work that we do. So we don't necessarily have to be thrown in the pool of someone who's shopping for a price with, thrown in the pool with other contractors and racing to the bottom.
Yeah, I would say so. It shows, like with the branding on your website, the YouTube channel. It's all original photos, no stock photos, all original video, which looks really professionally done.
Thank you.
So, yeah, absolutely. And customers resonate with that. They see the level of attention to detail you put in your own brand, and they feel that they're going to get the same detail on the work that you do for them, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's been very, very important. Like we've had folks that have wanted to build us websites in the past, and I've had plenty of arguments of, hey, no, I don't want to use those photos. We have our own photos. Let me send those to you. Or that, as simple as like someone who wants to help us with some promotions and doesn't stick with the correct color of our logo or the correct font. Like that stuff sounds kind of silly to get, crazy about, but again, it's attention to detail, right? Like I've said for years at a different point in that story of where we started when we owned a tree business at one point as well. And one of the things that I harped on the guys on the tree business all the time was there's so many guys who can come and remove this tree and take all the debris and the tree's gone. That's what the customer's paying for. But the difference with us and what their service that they're providing is we want it to look like we came in and just erased the tree and was never there. Like we don't want any, you can't even tell that we were on the site. There's no debris. There's no sawdust. All you should be able to see is a tree stump. And if we grinded that stump, then all you should see is dirt, And so it's the details in every single thing that you do that is going to make a customer talk about you or leave the good review or whatever,
Sure. What's been your approach to building a reliable crew in such a labor short industry right now?
That's a great question. And actually that's probably one of the number one things that we get asked in the coaching platform is, of course everyone's got questions about lead flow, but on the other side of that is, hey, I do have the leads coming in now. How do I go perform all this work? Right. Because it is extremely difficult to find great quality help, especially in the service industry where everything we do requires lots of talent and skill, So again, not to just keep beating a dead horse, but what we are really relying on now is the brand. We don't have a single person working with us other than marketing and office that have come here locally. They've all seen us online and have moved from another state and come here and worked here. And it's because, what we show online, but I think the brand will get them in the door, and culture and how you pay them keeps them there. I always say stallions run with stallions, and you can show that online and maybe get them in the door, but that's how you need to run your business too, or else they're going to leave, So I'm always challenging the guys. We pay them well. The good thing about the brand is we are able to show our culture. So typically, folks who are calling us to come to work for us, they already kind of align with who we are and what we do and what we show, so it's not like just bringing someone in cold.
Yeah, I think that's super powerful how you mentioned people will actually move from out of town to come work with you. And a lot of excavation business owners, they're looking so local in their little county, but you're right. You build that brand, the people will come because they want to come work with the best.
Yeah, in 23 we spent a ton of time and money with binoculars on, right? Like just looking with the blinders of just looking in our little pool of people to pull from, and we were finding that we were starting to look at the same people multiple times, and there's 3 or 4 guys in the county here that hold the majority of operators, and the cool thing is if we all know one another and we just pick the phone up and say, hey, have you ever worked with this guy? You can kind of figure out very quickly, like what that pool of talent in your area looks like. And if that's all you're looking at, then that's what you're limited to. It's really hard to outgrow the competition if you guys are all using the same people as well, so if you look a little bit broader and you can bring in people from other areas, then now you have room to grow,
So how do you hold your team accountable for high standards in the field?
At first, obviously that was difficult when it was like I was the standard setter and relied on everybody to follow me. And over time, it's gotten a whole lot easier because my guys will hold each other accountable as well. So, let's say someone comes in today, right? And they're new, they've never worked here before. They typically actually don't even get to work with me. I send them right out with my PM Vince, and Vince, him and I work so close together that he knows exactly what I expect to be delivered on a job. And Vince is also going to hold that next person accountable. If Vince wasn't there, the other operators or the other laborers on the job are going to hold that person accountable. They're not going to allow them to do, work that's not satisfiable to us, even if the customer is satisfied with. There's a lot of times that we've had in the past where, the operator or foreman will walk through a job and the customer's happy, and I'll swing by before we pick up equipment, and I'm just like, I see something I don't like, and they say, well, the customer's happy with it, and I'm, it's a weird situation, right? Because I'm not happy, but the customer's happy. At the end of the day, it's our standard that we're setting. It's the customer may be happy, but the job may not be correct. They're not the expert. We are the expert. So we have to deliver that expert service, but the answer really now is, the guys hold each other accountable really, really well.
Can you touch a little bit upon, like, do you use SOPs or checklists for some of the stuff you do?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sorry. So we do use checklists for lots and lots of stuff. From the minute the guys come in and are leaving with trucks that have tools on them, they have to check the truck off to make sure that all the stuff is on the truck. The equipment gets checked. And then the job site compaction gets checked, drainage gets checked, all that stuff but that's also going back to like, this is what we expect of just being done correctly, right? So there is correct, and then there's good, and there's great. So the job has to work. I expect that from everybody. Good is what the job will look like. Great is a combination of the two of those. And so you can't work here if you can only do one of the two. You got to be able to do, the job has to work properly and it has to look good.
So when you coach contractors, what's the first thing you typically fix or improve in their business?
Everybody's pretty different, and it's because they're coming from so many different. We get so many different folks, right? We get guys who have not started a business yet, guys who are just starting, guys who have been in business for 10 plus years and just are it's still a job for them. So, the guy who's been in business for a long time, he's typically got a number problem. The guy who's not started yet, it's really just a fear of how do I get everything in order before I'm going to start. And that's typically actually not even the guy who is really good at service. It's typically someone who's maybe more business oriented. So they have a lot of questions about business. The dude who just started is typically the guy who's, really good at the service, but doesn't know business yet. So, those three kind of avatars have different problems that we jump right into. The business guy, the dude who hasn't started yet, it's usually systems and procedures and stuff that they kind of want to get in place before they even start, which is tremendous that they can think that far ahead before starting. But then they have to learn the service side of stuff too. The dude who's just starting out, he always wants to know about leads and help. And then, like I said, the guy who's been in business for a long time, he's typically got a numbers problem. So we dive into like what his overhead is and what he's pricing jobs for and where he should be at with his gross and net profit. And we'll look at some of his recent jobs or jobs that are coming up and look at his expenses. So the different avatars kind of do have different things that we typically jump right into. And we just got to understand the avatar first.
Cool. What mindset shift does a contractor need to go from operator to business owner?
That is probably the most challenging mindset shift for most guys. And that is, I no longer get to be the guy in the seat of the machine, or, whatever the service is, right? I now have to put a different hat on and be the business owner. And making that decision is not very difficult. What's difficult is when things are going absolutely crazy on the job and you need to kind of jump in and take that hat off and put your old service hat back on. But that's where you really have to stop and figure out what part of the system is broken. And that's scary to do because in the meantime, you're not making money. You're just spending money on whatever the problem is right then. But if you can work through that in the time being, and it may come up, again in the future, but if you can work through that and fix that problem, then you don't have to keep fighting that problem, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of people are just so quick to change hats and just jump in and fix it because that's what they're good at and it's easy and it fixes the problem immediately, but the problem's going to come back up in the future. So I don't know if that seems like I weaseled out of that question, but I think the answer is being able to keep the business hat on.
How do you get your clients to balance the work in the field versus the work that needs to be done at the desk?
The coaching clients, you mean?
Right.
In the beginning, that's very difficult. So what I just recommend what I've done, I can just be a teacher of my own student, so I would limit myself. So if I was in that transitional phase of, I don't have all the guys yet to just go out and do the service all day long while I stay in the office and do what I need to do, I would just say, hey, at 12 o'clock today, I have to change hats and I have to go back into the office and do what I need to do. So my time for work is 7 to 12. After that, I got to go to the office, and I think that's important to be able to time block yourself so that at 2 o'clock, when something's going wrong on the job, you're not allowed to get back out there.
That makes sense. Let's talk about financial growth and scaling. What systems or processes helped you scale profitably without all the chaos?
I think number one, the first thing is understanding what your overhead is correctly. In the coaching courses, a lot of folks that come in there they think they understand their overhead, but they don't. And I've got a spreadsheet built out that I supply for them and say, hey, put all your stuff that you think overhead is in this spreadsheet and let's look at it together. And, typically they bring it to me and I'm like, well, what about this thing and that thing? And, your taxes and the tags on your truck and, all these other things, all your softwares that you pay for, like, they don't think about that stuff right at the beginning, And so I think understanding what your overhead is, no matter if you're going to work or not, before you start to grow and bring on new payments and buy new equipment and go to the bigger office and hire salary positions, is understanding where you're at right now, and what you can truly afford. Because if you don't understand your overhead and you don't really realize how much it's costing you to run your business right then, you're going to think, oh yeah, I can afford this and I can afford that. And what happens is that uncontrollable growth that I talked about. You might have $20,000 a month in overhead, and you think you've got 15 or 10, and now you've just bought another $5,000 a month piece of equipment, and you're adding that to it, and it gets to a point where you can't outrun it. You don't have enough guys that are going out and delivering the service to bring money in to outrun the overhead and the expenses, because you don't truly know what your expenses are. So I don't know that that's a system or a procedure, but with the spreadsheet, we dive really, really deep into that. And it's, unfortunately, that's not something that we can just blast on the spreadsheet and fix your problem in 24 hours. It's really like a 3-month curve, because there's things that you're going to pay monthly that you're not thinking about, that if it is top of mind and you're working on that spreadsheet, as you pay it, you're going to think, oh, this is overhead. Let me go add it to my spreadsheet,
Sure. At what point should a contractor stop doing everything and start delegating?
That's a good question. I think, so there's so many really answers to that, right? Because business side of it, the service side of it, financial side of it, you have to look at all that stuff across the board. So I think strategically, your field needs to be running by itself, right? You need to have guys in the field that are going out and providing their service, and it runs by itself. And you're just back at the office, and those guys are bringing stuff back to the office for billables and expenses and stuff like that. And then once you really hone the office in, then you can kind of step back a little bit further, look at all your numbers there as you're bringing folks in to help with the 2 different departments. And then you can step a little bit further back to that 30,000 foot view of where you're kind of watching everything, but I would say you need to make sure that service is running really well. You need to make sure that the office runs really well. And there's so many layers to those 2 things. Unfortunately, it's not just A and B. And then you need to make sure that the business is going to be financially sustainable. The service is bringing in enough money to pay for everybody on the back end of the stuff in the office and all the overhead, that it can then just kind of run. So that's not an answer that I can answer thoroughly with just an hour on this call, but
right.
I think that's the cliff notes of it, really.
Yeah. I mean, you got everything from company culture to SOPs to, there's
a million things in between those A, B, and C, that have to work.
Profit sharing. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff to that, right?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a contractor stuck at the $500,000 to $1 million revenue ceiling?
I think typically those guys are still out in the field. They're still very much in the field. And that's kind of where I said with A is making sure that the service side is running efficiently before you step out. Typically the guys that are just under $1 million, they're still working on A, right? They're still going out and they're providing the service. And that's where things can actually be very simple, of just building a crew and setting a standard and having the culture to say, hey, this is the work that we deliver. This is how we deliver it. This is how we go from A to B on this job every single time, no matter what variables come up. But I think that the number one most important thing is having a solid crew with SOPs and systems that you can start stepping out from the day to day, and just, going back to the office or going to sell work and doing stuff from 8 to 5 back in the office that you're normally doing after 5 o'clock, like going and selling work or coming back and putting things in the computer or billing customers or going and chasing down checks. A lot of those guys are still doing that stuff late in the evening when really they need to be doing it during the day if the service crew is doing what they need to do out in the field.
Mm-hmm. So what is your long-term vision for JC Property Professionals?
Well, it changes. 2 years ago, we kind of made a big pivot, and that's why we've, our gross will come down, and the guys that we have come down is because we're pivoting a little bit and we're ramping up the development side, and we're about to start a 32 home development with the other vertical of this business. But now I've got some great guys coming in, and a big opportunity with the excavation business here. So, and it runs pretty sufficient now. So I've got 2 boys. I've got twin boys that are 6 years old, and so I'd like to build the business where it's pretty self-sustainable. And at that point, I can either turn it over to the boys or sell it, or build a self-sufficient business.
Mm-hmm.
That'll obviously be several years down the road, but
yeah. What kind of legacy do you want to leave in the industry, both as a contractor and a coach?
Again, that's an answer that I could really talk about for a very long time, but just to hit the cliff notes of that, number one, with the business is, we want to provide a very different service than what a lot of folks typically receive. And on the coaching side of that, to add to that, the blue collar industry has a certain stigma around it, and we really want to change that. And that's why we're so passionate about the coaching stuff. Is there's a lot of guys, man, that are amazing dudes and want to provide for their families, and they go out and they bust their butt all day, every freaking day, and can't seem to get ahead. And it's just because of a few small little tweaks that they need to make in their business. And they can be very, very, very profitable, and not have to kill themselves every day and provide for their family. And we don't know everything, but I've learned a lot in the last 11 years. And, I want to help guys get that knowledge a little bit faster than I did. So, the answer for the legacy would just be changing the stigma of the blue collar industry.
Mm-hmm. What's one piece of equipment you swear by?
In the excavation world?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of folks that come to me in the coaching program that have either just started or about to start, their first question is what piece of equipment do you recommend we start out with? And that's a mini excavator. A lot of folks want to buy a skid steer to start, but because a skid steer is super easy to run, right? Like if you can play a video game, you can move dirt with a skid steer. But the mini excavator is really a Swiss Army knife, man. There's so many things that you can do with it, and you're not just limited to one type of job that you can do. You can do so many different types of jobs. So our advice for anyone starting out is your first machine should be a mini excavator, because there's so many different things you can do.
Mm-hmm. Sure. How about a favorite business book that every excavation pro should read?
That's a tricky one too, man, because it depends on where you're at in business of what I would recommend. But if you're looking to kind of make that shift, I would say the E-Myth by Michael Gerber is, of trying to make that shift, right, of working in the business to working on the business. But I also want to plug Jocko Willink, extreme ownership, man. There's a lot in this industry that, there's a lot of finger pointing because of ego. And at the end of the day, man, if we're the guy wearing the hat of being the business owner, it's all on our shoulders. And so we need to own that. Whatever's going wrong in your business, it can probably be traced back to yourself.
Mm-hmm. If you could go back and give your 25-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Man, I would say those first 7 to 8 years where we just hustled and hustled and hustled. there was so much waste back then, and there was just so much that we carried on our shoulders and worked ourselves to death, that if we would have just freaking stopped and slowed down a little bit and figured out our numbers before just going out and fighting fire every single day, that, man, we'd be so much further ahead. So not to have that uncontrollable growth and really know what your numbers are as you grow is the most important thing that I could have told myself for sure.
Mm-hmm. So I want to share how people can get a hold of you. Again, John Seaman, jcpropertyprofessionals.com is your website for excavation and site prep. The YouTube channel for your business is youtube.com/@jcpropertyprofessionals. And then your coaching business is the website dirttodollarscoaching.com. And that also has a phenomenal YouTube channel. You can go to youtube.com/@official John Seaman, spelled Seaman. So anything else, John? Any other words of wisdom or anything else you'd like to share?
No, that's it, man. I mean, I think we hit the cliff notes of a lot of stuff, and unfortunately, we can't share all the information that either of us have in an hour's time. So, I just say if folks wanted more of that information, we post a ton of it on the official John Seaman YouTube page. That's like our main focus, where we just blast everything, so that no matter where you're at in business, you can probably go there and find some advice or some entertainment or whatever, and then. You can find me everywhere else online at official John Seaman if you guys want to reach out directly to me.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. This was truly enlightening and a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And everyone who's tuning into this, listening, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in and have a great rest of your day.
Hey there, excavation pros. If you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure to like and subscribe to our podcast and channel. Leave us your feedback and let us know how we did. And hey, if you're interested in taking your excavation or septic business to the next level online, make sure you visit excavationmarketingpros.com today and take advantage of our free resources and mastermind group for excavation and septic industry professionals.